If you are as concerned about the gender confusion craze sweeping the country as we are, this is a show you are not going to want to miss. We'll be discussing everything from the gender confusion mass hysteria flooding our schools to the books in the classroom and everything that's trying to steal the hearts and minds of our children to convince them they are not who they are. This is a subject you are definitely going to want to hear because I'm sure it's going to be your mom view. And we're back for this big discussion. And remember, if you missed this show or any show, you can always catch it at themomview.com. And you will always get the highlights and where you can find the shows on our Instagram channel at The Real Mom View. So definitely check that out. So if you guys did not catch this story, I want to make sure that you heard it. I don't know if you ladies heard it, but a few years ago, probably about 2 years ago, there was a mom, I believe in New York, who was arrested because she allowed her daughter, her 10-year-old daughter, to get a tattoo.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I'm sorry, where do we even go with that?
Right?
When the topic is gender confusion,
Right.
we know that they are pumping our kids through drugs and convincing them they aren't who they are as early as Sesame Street. What can you possibly say when you're telling a parent you cannot allow your child to get a tattoo, but we can make your child transition into something other than what they are?
Right. And not only did the mom get in trouble, the tattoo artist got in trouble.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a double whammy, which when you break the law, everybody should get in trouble.
yeah,
But now that you can change your gender, puberty blockers, cut off your breasts,
The
all this
physicians
stuff as a
and the
minor.
surgeons are
So-
protected, right? Our politicians are protected that push the legislation to make this possible. The parents that are, their transgender kid is now their new Gucci bag, they don't get in trouble either. It is wild. It is wild.
And in certain states, you actually get in trouble if you don't allow them to have a gender.
Exactly.
Right. You can get your child taken away from
Your
you.
parental
You can go to
rights
jail.
taken
Well,
away.
let me mention that because that's a great into this, Hadas. In Illinois, where I'm from, this bill just recently, proposed would define parents as abusers for denying affirming services. And so you would be considered a child abuser if you do not let your minor transition. But the thing that's also crazy about this story, this representative is saying that if children being allowed to go under natural puberty can lead to irreversible damage. So if you let your child go through puberty, she's saying that's irreversible damage. That's how crazy everything has gotten.
allowing
Upside down.
Upside down.
Upside down.
You're allowing your child to naturally develop, and that is
Irreversible
Irreversible damage. So this is right. This is the upside down world we are in, and this is what Illinois is dealing with in California and everybody
Have you guys
else.
ever read The Emperor's New Clothes?
Let me ask.
You need to be reading that so that our children know when the emperor is naked and they have the courage to stand up and say so.
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you remember Shiloh Jolie-Pitt?
Yes.
The daughter of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Now, when she was 3, 4, 5, around this age, she used to dress like a boy. She had short hair and she only wore boy clothes. And everyone was kind of thinking, okay, which direction is she going to be going in? But she's now a teenager and she's dressed like a girl. So if this would have happened now, right, and your child just wants to wear boy clothes, you're going to take them to have this surgery. They can't go back. Take all of the hormone blockers, have the gender reassignment surgery, and now 10 years later, no, actually, I am a girl. I am.
Of course.
They don't know what at
what they're doing.
this young age of 3 or 4, they want to be Superman. They want to be. They
I
dress
know.
like firemen. They dress like princesses. So
they do.
I feel kind of
granddaughter wants to
lucky.
be a butterfly.
Yeah,
Do I put her on the top of the roof and say, fly,
Exactly,
little
yeah.
butterfly?
I feel
Where are the
lucky.
adults in the room? Can I just keep saying that?
They have a vivid imagination at a young age, like they should, but you shouldn't go and completely change their gender at such a young age.
Irreversible.
Irreversible.
That's irreversible.
Wait until you're 18 years old, and now you're an adult, and you have the freedom to do what you want. But before that age, it's just
Absolutely.
So there is common sense is being introduced, and Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced a bill in Congress, and Texas, several states have been introducing a bill, but Texas is really proud of them because they were able to get it passed in the last legislative session. And it was not a pretty picture. I mean, we had a bunch of our, Moms for America moms were down there promoting this bill. And it was pretty simple and straightforward. They were raising the age of 18. You cannot get puberty blockers or gender-changing surgeries or any kind of mutilating for these children until they're 18. You're 18 years old, you're an adult, you can make your own decision. But as children, we're going to protect the children.
Right.
And it was crazy house. I'm not even kidding. I mean, they had to shut down the Capitol building one day because they had this huge group of men coming in dressed as women. They weren't even trying to look like women. They had beards and everything. Came in dressed like women. And one of the guys who was wearing this short skirt, he had no underwear on, and he kept bending over and showing his junk. And everybody was like grossed out. And the mass chaos, they're yelling, they're throwing things. And so they had to shut down the Capitol. The next day, they had massive security. They had police dogs there. They were taking everybody's cell phones. Our mom still walked in, and they said, we're going to stand for what's right. Now, what's fascinating is this next video I want everybody to see was one of the women, a Hispanic Democrat woman, mom, who is serving in the Texas legislature, and what she went through, and the fact that she still went against her party and made the right vote to protect these kids was absolutely impressive. Let's watch the video.
Over the past 2 years, I have extensively researched this issue and painstakingly reviewed the scientific data in this country and around the globe. I have listened to my constituents, to advocacy groups, and stakeholders both for and against gender modification. After listening to the debate today, I absolutely believe we should raise the age to 18 for children to receive GnRH analogs, cross-sex hormones, and to undergo potential irreversible body-altering surgeries. While many of my constituents encouraged me to vote in favor of this legislation, hostile activists on social media platforms have made horrific, nasty political threats to influence my vote against the bill. Privately, some have shared in confidence that they agree with the bill, but they are too afraid of the retribution. As a thoughtful legislator, mother, woman of faith, and child advocate, I am making a decision to place the safety and well-being of all young people over the comfort of political expediency.
The emotion in her voice, I mean, that says it all. I mean, that is one courageous mama.
Yeah. I mean, you're speechless and your heart goes out to her for taking a stand. And, all of us have kind of been bullied at some level.
And one of the things that we really need to point out is this is not about a political party. And that's the example of it. This is not about being Democrat or Republican. This is about common sense and moms protecting their children. They want to divide our communities, our society, our countries by political parties. If you believe this, then you're red, and you believe that, it's blue. But no, there's people on both sides, and that's the example of it. This is not a political party. And it's like you were saying, politics have nothing to do with caring for our children.
I think that this has become such a uniting issue,
Absolutely.
right? Protecting women's sports, protecting our children, women and our children having safe spaces. This has become a unifying message. And the left's got to watch out for that because everybody's got a brain and they know that they've got to protect their kids.
Right. So two things. How is what is going on with this gender situation in boys and girls bathrooms and, men dressed as women flashing other women? How is that not considered sexual harassment? It absolutely is considered sexual harassment. And the second thing I'll say is, as someone that is, I guess, more melanated than everyone else, Black, Hispanic, whatever you want to call me, I'm an American first, but when I ran for school board, I experienced a lot of what this legislator is talking about. I was called white supremacist in blackface. I was called a race traitor. I was called an Uncle Tom. I was called a coon. I was called all of the derogatory names you could call somebody, all because I wanted to protect children. And that is the bottom line. What we're seeing right now is children need advocates. We need people to stand up and protect them. And that is exactly what we're seeing with this legislator. That's exactly what we're seeing with all of our moms across the country that are standing up and supporting our legislators that are pushing forward these legislation, these bills to make sure that our children are protected. And that is why we're here as the Mom View, to make sure that our voices are heard 100%. And so I'm so glad that we're here and that she is an advocate and a champion.
And a lot of times you hear this is not about politics. It's the battle between good and evil.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a tug. And when you look at these numbers, I mean, the national inpatient sample between 2016 and 2020, in those 5 years, an estimated 48,019 patients of all ages underwent procedures, and 7.7%, which is 3678, were between the ages 12 and 18.
Oh my God.
So 405 children went through genital surgery, 350 went through unspecific cosmetic surgery, but under the age of 18.
Irreversible.
Irreversible.
And this is what spikes the numbers when they say that there's more transgender, right? They're forcing the numbers higher because they're allowing this kind of mutilation. I mean, Mengele would be so excited about what is going on right now.
And I think too, we talked about this in our segment with about Dr. Grossman. You know, these kids think that it's going to be unicorns and rainbows when they change their gender, but they become, you know, chronic patients, chronic infections, kidney, urine bags. I mean, this is lifelong pharmaceutical patients.
And I've seen on social media, there's cases of people who are depressed that they made a bad decision. They wish they could have gone back. They regret it.
I know, and the counseling and the detransition community, right? There's a huge community of people that are detransitioning, that they were transitioned as children and now they're detransitioning. They don't exist. They're canceled. Their accounts get constantly deleted. Their posts, their media, they don't exist.
They have all the support when they want to transition.
Yes.
But when they go to detransition, they are abandoned.
Not only that, they're abandoned in the healthcare system with the insurance.
All the way.
We talked to 3 or 4 detransitioners who said they had all the support in the world when they were
going
transitioning.
forward.
But when they wanted to go backwards, the insurance company wouldn't cover them.
The insurance.
They're using them for
Would
their
not
community.
support
They're
them.
using them for their propaganda. And
That's right.
And then when you're in constant chronic pain and you have to constantly go back to the doctor and you can't find any solutions, you're in pain, that is going to take a toll on your mental health for sure. It absolutely will.
And I think too, when we talk about this, we're very tenderhearted about this.
Oh, absolutely.
As mothers, we all, if anyone has a child that is going through this or a mom there that is listening, our hearts are with you because this is a very difficult situation. And we do want to provide answers and solutions,
And support,
you know, to help you.
support. We want to support you if this is
very
something that you're
tough.
going through.
Well,
You're
and a
not
lot of
alone.
people are. I mean, there was I was at a speaking event in California last fall, and I was talking with one of the moms about, we were doing the gender confusion event in Washington, D.C., and one of these moms was talking about her concerns, and a guy across the way heard it, and he came over and he said, "What are you talking about?" And I told him, and I mean, it's kind of trepidatious when somebody says, "What are you talking about?" Or you're going to get attacked, or you're like, you know. But I answered him, and he just, you could tell he was getting emotional. And he said, "My 15-year-old daughter is convinced that she's a boy." He said, "I have more money than I know what to do with. I cannot save my daughter. Money cannot save my daughter." He just felt absolutely helpless. There's no way I can help my daughter. And this is what parents are really suffering with right now. And when you've got Planned Parenthood heralding that they can transition a kid in one session, that's a problem. Because they're just asking a simple question. Are you comfortable in your body? And then it just goes from there. And that's
What teenager isn't comfortable in their own body?
exactly.
And the same people that are trying to censor us and Meta, and they ask you to put your pronouns. Why do we need pronouns?
right.
I mean,
Why?
most grown women are uncomfortable
conditioning.
in their own bodies.
It's the message.
conditioning.
It's the message
That's
that
right.
they're trying to
That's right.
deliver.
Well, this has been going on for a long time. We're going to talk about that when we come back, because Myra worked with Planned Parenthood for 17 years, and she has some serious intel about how long this has been going on. And it's just like it just flipped a switch,
Right.
And it happened overnight. But they've been planning and preparing this, and then it got to the point where they're like, okay, we have all control. We don't have to hide it anymore. We're just going to tell everybody what it is that we're going to do. But we're also going to give more solutions. And so when we come back, we'll have more of this discussion and some solutions to help you where you are.
Do you think America is having an identity crisis?
Yes, very much so. My people perish for lack of knowledge.
There's a lot of targeting of conservative children.
That they're coming after the children. It's like, you know what? We have to do something. This is war.
Professors and students are trained in a particular kind of way, and that there's indoctrination that takes place that you're not aware of.
All the curriculum was dumbed down, and we moved away from teaching knowledge, facts, and information, and instead inculcated, indoctrinated kids with attitudes, values, and beliefs that most parents don't believe and don't want their children believing.
The globalists that want to reshape the globe are a elite group, a small group of gatekeeper elites.
Our children are being formed, they're being shaped by a system that is actually designed to turn them away from God, to turn them away from the principles that are at the foundation of our country, really even to turn them against their families.
That the condition of the land is always directly related to the condition of God's people's hearts. And so we're now maybe facing national judgment.
Now what we're up against is the establishment. We see that we need to have some kind of a healthy revolution. We would always say a non-violent revolution, but there has to be a revolution. Otherwise, we're going to go down because these foxes are part of a world order. They're globalists, they're not Americans, and they'll sink this ship.
Just think of the power of those 3 words, just a mom. You are fighting for something that means more to you than anything in the world, your children.
There are patriots like you and me fighting against the globalist agenda in order to preserve our republic. I want you to meet them and be inspired. Are you ready? Let's go.
Moms for America has been heavily involved in the gender confusion issue because it directly affects parents, moms in particular, and it's really affecting our girls. And Debbie and I have been really involved because of all the things that we've been doing. We want to provide resources to moms. First, know what's happening, and then what you can do about it. So we've had press conferences, we've had bills that we've sponsored. Marjorie Taylor Greene had a great bill in Congress to protect kids from
We did a big press
mutilation.
conference
We did.
to support it because it was so important,
Yeah, in Washington, D.C. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew about it. Texas had a bill, and it actually passed. We're very excited about that one. We pushed heavy for that. And they raised the age to 18 for not just child surgeries, but also the puberty blockers. So there are people that are making common sense, but it's still like this big, not just in the schools, it's like this huge cultural like pandemic, and everybody, like the adults are buying into it, and our children are being sucked into it, and it's like, where are the adults in the room? That's what I want to say all the time. Where are the adults in the room who are supposed to be protecting these
children?
kids?
Yeah, and even parents. I mean, there's a lot of incredibly strange things happening all around the country in families and in homes and in schools. So gender confusion is something that moms have been coming to us, I would say, in record numbers.
Yeah, they
so
have.
we have done so much on this topic because it is so heavy, and it affects not only that child, that family, those siblings. And so we've talked about it a lot. Just a little bit about our Dallas summit that we had. We did a big gender confusion panel with some terrific guests. We also did kind of a rerun of that because we did it in Washington, and it was so well received. We had January Littlejohn. She's one of our moms. You know, she's a mom, and she is also a counselor. And here her daughter was transitioned right basically behind her back and in front of her eyes. So she couldn't believe it. So she goes all around the country, do no harm. So January, I mean.
Well, what makes her story so powerful, and not that all the stories aren't, but the fact that she's not just a parent, but she's also in the mental health industry. And so she can talk about it from both angles, and how the mental health industry has completely turned from actually helping these kids with the underlying issues that are causing them to question their identity to let's just deal with the identity. And so they're masking the problem, and then they exacerbate the problem. And then when their frontal lobe actually develops, they have a major problem that they can't repair. They can't go back from. And it literally is causing an epidemic across the country in the mental health industry, where kids don't even know who they are anymore, and they're constantly being questioned at a time when
so tender between
between 11 and 14. If anybody asked you, are you comfortable with your body? What are you? It's like, yeah.
Puberty is hard enough as it is, let alone to come after these children and start messaging specifically to them and asking them strange questions. Now, January's little girl, just like many of the kids, was on the spectrum. So they are looking at kids that are already kind of challenged in some areas. Maybe they're, like some of the moms call them quirky, so they're already kind of just trying to figure out this world, let alone now they're coming into puberty and they're targeting these kids with like, are you really who you are? Are you really this?
They don't, nobody's talking about that.
Yeah, there is.
They're pushing this open bathroom and everything.
Right.
And a lot of these girls have been molested.
Right.
And we're putting them in this really dangerous situation where and not just the girls, but the boys too. What kind of situations to put the boys in when we're pushing them into these bathrooms and locker rooms together and all of the laws are against them?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a no-win situation. Right. And then there's the women and the men who have done the transitioning and then they've come back and re-interviewed some of them.
So Laura Perry Smaltz, what an incredible story. I'm going to just let you know about her website right away because it's Eden's Redemption Ministry and her book is called Transgender to Transformed. And she was such a great guest and we fell in love with her. Here, this is an adult who is never comfortable in her body. She's, to her own admittance, says, I had psychological issues. I had issues mentally that I was not comfortable with myself or my surroundings or who I was, who God created me to be. And I thought if I transitioned, they would all go away. And they didn't. But she went 9 years she was trans. She underwent years of cross-sex hormone therapy, 2 major gender-affirming surgeries, legal changes, and her story is an amazing testimony of restoration, what God can do. So I just really would encourage that too, because so many people today, the world is so confusing. If you're not comfortable in who you are just on a path of destruction. So her testimony is amazing. She's back to being a female. She married someone, she's in love, and it's a great story.
And they were all there. There's another story of a, gosh, I can't remember his name right now, but he lives out in California. He had transitioned to a girl. And one of the things that his mom,
David,
that's it.
David Bacon.
David Bacon. and we were asking his mom, what did you do?
Right.
How did you get him back?
Right.
And she said, I never, ever, ever called him her or whatever the other name was. And she said, you'll always be my son. You were my son. You were my son.
Right.
And then when he was able to come back, he said, it was largely because of my mom. And he said, I thank her. I'm just so grateful for her because she loved me unconditionally. She never, slammed him or in any way made him feel bad. It was just constantly affirming who he actually was. And he said, that's really the thing that helped him. And I've talked to other people who their parents weren't there for them, either because they were all in for this or they had been deceived by it. And one of the things that they say all the time is, where were the people who loved and trusted me the most, who loved me and I trusted the most, who should have protected me, but allowed this to happen to me? And how do you repair that kind of a relationship?
It's devastating. And when you're talking about David Bacon and his mom not affirming, the change, we have a podcast, a weekly podcast on the Moms for America, Moms for America podcast, and some of these folks have been on our show. That's how we know about them. Kimberly's great at finding all these amazing stories. She says, Deb, go and interview them. So I do. But David was on there, and when you're just talking about not affirming, that is what Dr. Miriam Grossman said on the podcast to me. She said, Debbie, do not, and she was talking right to the parents, do not affirm them until they're an adult. When they're still a child, you treat them like a child and you know the best for them. So you don't go affirming. But I also want to mention that Dr. Grossman's book is very, very good for any mom that has a question in their family or friends. It's called Lost in Transnation, a child psychiatrist's guide out of the madness.
That is an incredible book.
Yeah.
And just so you know, a lot of these books are available on audiobooks. So you can listen to them in the car, when you're taking the kids to school or on the treadmill. Really, these are really great, valuable tools. And we just, every time we have an opportunity to find a resource, whether it's someone's story, personal experience, or something that they've written or done, we want to share it.
How about when you told me, she called me and she said, do you know about the parents of Inconvenient Truths about trans? I'm like, no. So somehow you met them or they called you and they said, we've got to let your moms, our moms, know about this anonymous site. It's a Substack, and you and I don't even know what Substacks are, but we're just learning what all this is, Substacks. And so you can go there as a parent and talk about these issues with other parents that have gone through this trans crisis, this gender crisis in their home. And so that is another great resource. Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trans. They have a Substack, and they have a book according, to the same name. So there's so many more resources. I mean, 5 years ago, no resources.
Right.
Now there's so many resources,
it's because
moms.
it's everywhere. And
Right.
one of the things that moms need to understand is that this is happening. This isn't a matter of if your child is affected by this, it is when. And even if you're, I talk to a lot of parents who homeschool and they say, well, I left the school system because of that. I'm like, well, that's great, but who are your kids playing with?
Right.
And it's not just in the schools.
Right.
It's in what they watch on the TV, the music they listen to, the games that they're playing. I mean, it's just tentacles everywhere.
Right. Trevor Project. All of these things.
Exactly.
The schools keep pushing it. Whenever they approach the children, it seems somehow it's all about gender.
Right.
It's not about anything psychological. It's not about anything else that could be happening in the home or in the culture or anything. It's all about gender now. That is absolutely insane.
Well, and if you can be confused about who you are or who you think you might not be, then they can convince you of anything. If you can take away your very identity, they can build you. It's like
so destructive.
I mean, it's what bad example is good example. Marines, okay? They build these men. You come into the Marines and they break you down to nothing and build you up to what they want you to be. Usually it's really good, so that's okay. But in this case, it's not. They're like breaking you down from everything that gives you any kind of foundation or something to believe and hope for or hold on to, and then they fill it.
Right.
With their lies, their deception, their deceit. So one of the things that you as parents need to know is that there are now counselors. The federal government has provided money to school districts across the country for counselors, full-time or part-time, whose sole responsibility is to transition kids, and the goal is within 2 weeks.
Right.
Yes, that is what I said. They
Right.
want to transition these kids in 2 weeks. And Planned Parenthood is heralding the fact that they can do it in one session. So we're like, how is that possible?
And that
How can you transition a kid in 2 weeks or one session? Well, it's first thing you think of is the surgeries or the puberty blockers. It's not where it starts. It starts with a simple question. Are you comfortable in your body?
Right. And, they did this survey at our school.
That's right.
Right here in Illinois. And they started asking the kids all about their gender. And what bothered me the most is when you ask someone, could you be questioning? You check that little mark because your heart is just questioning everything.
That's right.
You start embedding insecurities about yourself. And I just hate that we are just going to the very heart and soul of these children and saying, you know what, maybe you're not who you are. How dare they do that?
And if you start, you're questioning every day, maybe you aren't who you are, maybe you aren't who you are, they're going to start to question, maybe I'm not who I am. And that is exactly what happens in this video.
Yeah.
We did a great partnership with
Epic Times.
Epic Times.
We sure did. So we showed this trailer at a couple of our gender panel events, and this is really a great resource for you moms. So if you haven't seen this, we're going to show you the trailer. It's called Gender Transformation, The Untold Realities. It's by Epic Times. It's an original docudrama, and it's examining the complex issues surrounding transgenderism in our youth. Take a look, and after that, we're going to join you back out on the couch.
Do you think you'd be happier as a boy?
My mom would never allow it. That's abuse.
Oh, you can't hear me cry. See my dreams all die from where you're standing on your own.
Anybody who's gone through this, it's the same thing.
Sweetie, please. No. I need you to leave.
Evie.
No.
Where are you getting this from?
We're just masquerading.
When did parents become enemy number one?
This is all coming from the top, the major corporations, governments, politicians.
You have a pipeline. It's also in the education system.
So today we're going to talk a bit about genders. We are here to support you.
I feel like I couldn't breathe. My aching body fell to the floor.
I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of parents. Our stories are all the same.
They told my parents if I wasn't allowed to transition, I would be at risk of suicide.
This was a group where they basically gathered vulnerable children and taught them that it was us against them.
Would you rather have a dead daughter
or a living son?
That question is asked over and over again, and therapists are trained to say that.
It's destroyed my health.
Looking back, it made me feel even more hopeless.
And then I felt down, I felt tired, I felt exhausted. Left half of my body shakes on its own uncontrollably. I'll never be the same. I was allowed to destroy my body.
They never talk about how much harm is being caused.
You know Joshua from Club? He says our closest family are often our worst enemies.
It's separating kids from their parents.
The state has decided that Evan should stay at a group home for now, for his safety.
See my dreams all die from where you're standing on your own.
We miss you so much, Abby.
Leave him alone.
Like, this is the most important question. Why are they all doing this?
I know this is a weighty discussion, a big subject, but we need to talk about it. And I know it's what a lot of parents want to talk about. So that's why we feel it's important to do discussions about solutions, not just the problem itself. And so Debbie and you and I were able to have a good conversation about that. But I want to throw it over to Myra here for a minute because she has an interesting experience being with Planned Parenthood and what they did.
You know, the saddest part is that people think it's a new thing. You know, most people realize this is happening after the pandemic, right? Like after 2020, the world changed and now all of a sudden it's happening. I worked for Planned Parenthood and it was in the year 2008 when I got the first kind of like a book program that says the future of transgender services for Planned Parenthood. This is 2008 in the state of Arizona, fully, you can call it Republican back then, right? It was already happening in San Francisco in 2005, 2006. This is not new. What happened is that parents are just noticing because now they're open about it. Right. Why? Because they got the right people in the right places, which is part of the solutions that we should come up with, right? They have there's no lie who's funding that party, who's funding. I mean, we can see the VP Kamala Harris going across our country right now promoting Planned Parenthood services because they have always donated money for their campaign. I myself, grassroots, in canvas for many Democrat candidates in my state, right? But that's part of why I'm part of the Mom View, because for so many years I went into their communities and did the indoctrination that you can come and see me. I'm not going to tell your mom that you came to my center. I'm going to give you condoms. I'm going to tell you how to use them. And I'm going to tell you how to get abortion without parental permission and all these contraception services, which is the same thing now it's happening with the puberty blockers, right? With the hormonal replacements, with even surgeries, right? And they're telling their children, just like you said, Planned Parenthood is very proud to say that in one day, 20 years ago, for a transgender person to be put into hormones and get a transition surgery, it requires psychiatry evaluations. Not one, but several. It requires psychological treatment first, right? One of the requirements was you have to live as a woman for over 6 months, exactly like a woman. And if you cannot do it, you cannot transition. That was over 20 years ago. All of a sudden, all those things are off the book. All of a sudden, there's no more suicide rates on transgender people, which have been on the books for so long. The suicide rate, they don't live longer than age of 45, things like that, right? All of a sudden, that has been erased. And there's no more psychiatry evaluations. There's no more psychological evaluations, no more therapy. Actually, therapy is being forbidden, right? Therapy, like there's no therapy. It's abuse. You were saying that in our previous segment.
I mean, these doctors are getting their licenses removed for even just questioning, you know, a child or a situation that encourages the transition. If they, you know, go against transgendering a child, the psychologist will lose their license. I mean, what you said about two things. What you said about going into the communities and having you telling children that I won't tell your parents if you come to me, that struck a memory within me. So, and this is a little heavy, but when I was molested at 12 years old, my mother's husband, my stepdad, took me into Planned Parenthood and put me on birth control. And they didn't question. They had no question. It was, you can come in, you can get an abortion, you can come in, you can get condoms, you can come in and get birth control, and nobody will know. Nobody will tell your mom. Nobody will tell your parent.
I'm your best friend.
Right, I'm your best friend. That is absolutely horrifying. And so as a mom, when I hear that people, grown-ups, are trying to keep secrets from parents about their own children, I mean, it's a breach of trust, and we can't stand for that. And the second thing I'll say to you is that when you mentioned how in 6 months, if you live as a woman, you can become on the track to be transgender. Women who are in abusive relationships can't divorce their husbands in some states without being separated for an entire year. For an entire year. But you're going to tell me that if I live as a man for 6 months, or my 12-year-old lives as a boy for 6 months, that they can just all of a sudden transition? This is absolutely wild. It's crazy. It's so infuriating. I'm sorry.
The fact that it's been going on under our pillows for so long, and we've been asleep. There's no other word to say it, but the society has been sleeping on this.
Thank you for your courage for coming forward and blowing the whistle. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
She really did.
I mean, she took them down. She's the only person that has sued Planned Parenthood and won.
Oh, fantastic!
So let's Harold, this lady.
Let it to the Mexicans.
A mama and a Mexican. No.
Yeah, you can. Don't play.
Well,
Very
I don't know if you
courageous.
guys saw have you seen Lord of the Rings, that film? Okay, so
No.
we talk a lot about people been asleep, but you really got to give them some grace, because it wasn't really about being asleep. It was about being lied to and deceived.
Yes.
And it was done behind closed doors.
And Myra thought she was helping.
Exactly.
Right.
And so that's the other thing, is a lot of people are deceived into believing that you are the one helping.
Yes.
So most of the people who are the deceivers, very small group. Those who are deceived, a large group. That means that we can turn that.
Absolutely.
We can go and by providing information and support, encouragement, then they will be able to see that there's the other side of this. So when I think about Lord of the Rings, it's exactly what I think about is happening right now. You had this underbelly, this darkness, these evil, icky guys who are down underneath the ground, and then all of a sudden the ground breaks open and it's all here, and that's what happened in 2020. It was always there.
Right.
It's just now they don't even hide from it anymore, and they tell you straight in your face what they're going to do. I mean, I was at a school board meeting a couple months ago, and the whole entire objective of the school board meeting was to downgrade parental rights. They were going to vote to downgrade parental rights in the school system, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now? But here's the other side of this, and this is real power, you guys, because what I saw is something that has never, ever happened in the history of our country. There were over 100 parents, mostly moms, who showed up. They were Hispanic, they were white, they were black, they were Muslim, they were Christian, they were Jewish,
and they were loud.
all united together.
Yes.
And they were saying, no, you are not going to do this. I mean, to have a group like that coming together, and this is why I tell people, motherhood is the great unifier.
It is.
It's what unites us together. You don't mess with our kids. And when you get a group of moms together, a whole network of moms together. I'm just going to say, ladies in the camera, I'm telling you, this is power.
Yes.
We have the ability to turn this around. We truly, truly do. So let's talk more about solutions.
That's right.
Yeah. So I just want to offer a couple of mine real quick. And one is the books. Yeah. The books that we read. So our children are going to be, they're going to see these things. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And you know, Debbie and I talk about this all the time. It is happening. Whether or not you realize it's happening, it's happening. Your children are being exposed to this in one way or another. And so if we are reinforcing our values and our principles, introducing common sense with something simple like The Emperor's New Clothes. And I tell moms all the time, read this book to your kids, your grandkids, 2-3 times a week, so that they will recognize when the emperor's naked. All those people bought into the fact that he's got this new set of clothes and he's wearing nothing but his undies. And I was reading this to my granddaughters the other day, and they're like, he's naked. And I was like, yes, And then there's a great book, Johnny the Walrus, that was by Matt Walsh.
Yes, that's a good one.
And so good, where this mom goes through this whole thing of her son's just play acting, like you said, and so then everybody says, "Oh no, he's not play acting. You need to accept him for what he is. He's a walrus." And so they go through all the transition of being a walrus, and he's like, "I really don't like this. I mean, these straws are hurting my teeth," and I'm like, and so it's just and then she's like, "Okay, you guys are all nuts, and I'm going to go back to letting my child be just creative." So I mean, simple things like that can make
Elephants
make
Are
a
Not
big
Birds
difference.
is another one like that.
Yes,
Elephants
My
are
kids
not birds.
love that story.
Great book.
And why is that important? Because I want you to know that Planned Parenthood is also making books for children. And those are being handed in school because they are allowed to bring their books to the schools. We are not, but they are.
They create. I mean, they've got their stuff together because they created these things, cartoons, and they have the gendered person that about 5 years. And this has been going. Gendered persons have been going around for at least 15 years in all the schools. And they call it a classical way to teach kids about gender identity. And they then about 4 years ago, they switched it over to the gender unicorn because they decided the genderbread person was too masculine. And the guy who started all this names himself metrosexual, some guy. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't.
And what I was just going to say too, I think if we can teach the children young.
Yes.
The Baumbergers from the Radiance Foundation was on the podcast, and they wrote 2 books. He is he, she is she.
Yeah.
Start that at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Grandmas, get those books for your kids, your grandkids, and read that. Affirm their gender, who God has made them, who God has created them to be. Also, in the car, listen to podcasts so your kids listen to it. Have them those cultural podcasts that are in discussion so they start picking up that information. And also, we have a gender confusion booklet at momsforamerica.us. Shameless commercial, but we have this on our website, and it is incredible information for you moms. Again, momsforamerica.us. We have our gender confusion booklets. Got to get this out.
At the end of the day, what's the rush? What's the rush?
Right.
This is all about saving the children. And children look to us. They're looking for guidance. Until they're 18, we're their parents. We should guide them. We should be their example. And you know what? After the age of 18, listen, I believe in freedom. I believe that everyone should be able to do what they want to do, love who they love, if they're not hurting anybody. But while they're children, it's our job as moms, as parents, to protect them and to guide them in the right direction.
That is such a good point. And this is a true scientific and psychological statement that whoever gets to a person first becomes the expert. Exactly. So everybody after that is competing with the expert. Right. So we need to be the experts. If you're not talking to your children about gender, someone else is. Exactly. If you're not talking about sex, someone else is. And it seems ridiculous to say age appropriate with this garbage that they're shoving down our kids' throats. But there is an age appropriate way that we can do it to protect them. So when that comes. And one of the things I cannot stress more is, and I'll probably say this in multiple shows, is that we have got to be at the crossroads of our children's lives. And we have got to make sure that they know we're on the same team. So I have always told my children, if there is ever anything that makes you feel dark or ugly or uncomfortable, come and tell me, and we'll do it together, because we are on the same team. I am your advocate.
No one loves you more.
That's right. No one loves
no
you
one
more.
loves you more.
That is a great statement.
No one loves you more.
No one loves you more.
Shielding our kids is not helpful. You have to, don't obviously throw them into the pool without any kind of, help, but you're supposed to, encourage them, right, and give them the information that they need. Another book I would like to bring up that just recently came out it's called The Queering of the American Child by Dr. James Lindsay and Logan Lansing. It is the perfect book for parents and moms to completely understand in a way that you can understand it, not like the jargon, the psychological jargon that you're not going to understand, right? It's not 30,000 foot view. It is right here in plain English for you to understand the gender theory, the gender ideology, and how it's affecting you as a family, how it's affecting your child, and exactly what they're doing and how you can counteract it. It is an amazing book.
And it's also an audiobook, so there's no excuse not to get this book.
And your kids really, you know, you love your kids so much. I think your kids, they actually love you even more than you love them. They
Yes,
look
they
to
do.
you.
They
Want,
sure
when I
do.
spend time with my kids, they're so happy. They're so grateful. Like, they want you to give them the attention. They want you to guide them. So they look to you, and what do you have to say about this? They don't want, they'll try and tell you what they think is right. They'll try and tell you, no, this is what's good for me. This isn't, but they want to hear it from you. So even if they act like they don't want to hear it, or they act like they're listening, they want you to kind of be there and guide them. You know, that's what they're looking for.
They want those boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants those boundaries.
Yeah.
When we go into a theme park, what's the first thing we look for? we look for the line.
Yeah.
Where's the line?
You need to order.
Right. We're in the airport. We're looking for the signs. I mean, we don't want chaos. Neither do they. That is such a great statement.
good
They
point.
want us to guide them.
Yeah.
They want that protection. They want to know that they're safe.
When they go and
so
touch
easy.
the you know, and you tell them don't touch the fire, they look at you.
Right.
While they're going to touch. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
And this is the reason why it's so easy for Planned Parenthood to come in, and for these love bomb, the sex cult, the gender cult to come in and to indoctrinate your child at a young age, because they're looking for that. They're looking for somewhere to belong. Sure. If they don't belong, if they don't feel like they belong at home, and they don't feel like they have that connection with your parent or their mom or their dad or their uncle or their aunt or somebody that is close to them, grandmother, anyone that is a part of their family that can guide them in the right direction, it is easy for them to fall for the cult trap. It is. It really is. And so you have to be that voice.
And I'm going to add, as part of the solution, it's for parents to be more involved, moms to be more involved. How do you get all those 100 parents inside those school board meetings? Because they have to be there. Right? They have to be part of the school board. They have to be part of the people making the decisions. And it's part of the solution too, encouraging. And just like we had in another segment about the medical freedom, choosing the right medical provider for your children.
That's right.
Rise up, stand up.
We
surely cannot trust
that
anything,
guide,
right.
protect. That is our role. Right. It is our right. It is our responsibility, and that's the bottom line. And that, you know, we also have the parental rights guide, and all of those things are available at momsforamerica.us. So we're here to help and support you. This is the conversation, but it doesn't stop here. Ladies, we're here because we care about our kids, and we know you care about your kids and your grandkids. So this is an opportunity for us to find ways to help support each other. So if you have an idea and you have an issue that you want to address, any book that you want to recommend,
Topics.
come and tell us. Come to themomview.com and let us know, because we want to hear about it too. And we'll be right back. What kind of America do you want to leave future generations? What do you want America to look like for your children and your grandchildren? Our nation is at a crossroads, and it will be us, the mothers of America, who will determine the future of our country. What we teach and nurture in the hearts of our children and how we vote will make all the difference. If you love God, respect life, honor family, and cherish freedom, then use your voice and be heard. We teach these values in our home. Let's secure them with our vote. Welcome back. I just want to review some of the great resources that we've talked about on this show. Debbie, you had some that we talked about in our segment?
Dr. Grossman, any books by Dr. Grossman are going to be incredible for you to help in your family and in your home there. Lost in Transnation, and also we talked about Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trans. Two excellent resources for you. Again, all of this in gender confusion, parental rights, all on momsforamerica.us.
And Allie.
One more is The Queering of the American Child by Dr. James Lindsay and Logan Lansing. It is the perfect book for moms to understand in plain English what the transgender cult looks like and how to effectively change it and protect your children from it. Great resource.
And if you have not seen Gender Transformations Untold Stories, highly recommend it. It is great. It's a documentary, but what makes it really powerful is it's a docudrama.
Yes.
And the thread through the whole entire film is this story of this mom and her child and what she and her daughter went through. And it's a tragic story, but you can see how it just played out. So you have an idea of what your children are being exposed to and solutions on how we can counter it. And that's what we're about, is solutions. Be at the crossroads. I cannot express that enough. You are on the same team. What is it, Debbie?
No one
loves you more than your mama and
No
your
one
daddy.
loves you more. Say it over
Yeah.
and over again. Your children need to hear that.
Yeah.
And just like Hadass said, they need your safety. And Myra, know that this has been going on for a long time. Now we're just blessed. Honestly, think about that. We're blessed because now we know and now we can counter it. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. And again, like us on Instagram at The Real Mom View.
Yes.
The Real Mom View. I want to see you there. And if any show that you want to miss, that you may have missed, that you can catch it at themomview.com. And we want to hear from you. So we want you to share your mom view with us, and you can do that at themomview.com. And we'll see you next week on The Mom View.